must say it's a privilege to actually be at the #1 business school in the country. So thank you for having us. We're delighted to be here. Second thing is, I'm told that there's actually many more students here, or I should say business school students, from outside of IIMA than they're actually from IIMA. So welcome to all of you too, and we look forward to, over a period of time, I look forward to coming to many of your campuses. So look, I think this morning you all talked about in search of excellence and change and everything that's tied to excellence. What I'm going to talk about is what's going on in the technology world, right? What's going on in the world that we live in, which is the world of the internet, the world of mobile, the world of cloud infrastructure, etc. And for those of you that have joined Goldman Sachs, RBS and Procter & Gamble, you're welcome to the group if you're not interested about this. But the reason that even you should actually stay in the room is because if you want to drive for excellence, right? It's actually to be excellent in companies and in industries that are going to be the biggest industries in your career, right? I mean, you've got, let's say, 40 years, right? You've got between 30 and 40 years of runway in your careers. And if you want to be excellent, be excellent in a set of industries, in ecosystems, where it's really going to matter. And that's why I thought it might be interesting for us to, and I'm also not going to talk much about Google. I mean, I'd be glad to ask any questions you all have about Google and how we do things. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about what's going on in the technology industry, because what we are seeing today, both in the global technology industry as well as in India, is unprecedented. The level of change is unprecedented. The level of innovation is unprecedented, right? And as you think about driving for excellence, driving for excellence in the companies that you're trying to build, driving for excellence in your careers, I always believe, be where the action is, right? And hopefully, in the next 30, 40 minutes, what I'll be able to, get some of you excited about is the entire technology space. So let me start off, and by the way, you can't see the title of this thing. It's actually called The Time to Start Up, right? So one of the things I'm also going to talk about as you actually listen to all of this is, I think the sense you'll begin to get, and we believe this strongly, is it's a phenomenal time to be in the technology industry. Technology industry broadly defined, right? But it's also, especially in India, it is an absolutely incredible time to start up technology companies, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Hey, Professor, next time you should have the screen there so that the screen is not small and you have this big thing and we're trying to promote the conference. But everybody knows they're here. By the way, it's sort of me, I give everybody a hard time. Okay, how does this work? All right, so, I'm going to start off with, where we are with the internet around the world, because I think that's important, right? 1995. How many of you were in kindergarten, 1995? Before first grade, I'm sure there were 2, 3, yeah, exactly. Well, 30% of the room, rest of you are. Right? 1995 was the beginning of the internet in the world, okay, as we know it. Right? I was at MIT in 1991. Actually, the internet wasn't being born. We were actually working in a computer lab at MIT, which is actually where some of the first generation internet technologies got written. 1995, there were 16 million internet users in the world. Right? 16 million, that's all there were. By the year 2000, there were 360 million internet users worldwide. Okay? By the year 2005, we had 1 billion people on the worldwide internet. 2010, 2 billion people on the internet. Right? Guys, if you think about this, right, and those of you especially, all of you study business, right? If you're in a business, one of the things you want to think about is how quickly can you build scale, right? What does this really mean? What does this really mean? You have 2 billion, by the way, that number is going to go to 2, by 2015, very conservative basis, we're going to have 3 billion users on the internet, which is 40% of the world is going to be on the net, right? So if you think about a business, today, if you've got a really hot product, a hot idea, right? Your marketplace is 2 billion users, right? And that is the reason you're seeing companies go from founding to $1 billion in revenue and 10 billion in market cap in 24 months, right? There's a reason why companies like Facebook, Twitter, Singa, Groupon, right, have been able to reach incredible scale very, very quickly. It's because of this. And at 3 billion users and 40% of the world on the web creates an incredible opportunity, right, to build companies around this 3 billion user base, right, as well as the billions of businesses on online. So that's the thing that I wanted to start with. The other thing is, okay, the other thing that's important is if you look at the growth from 2 billion to 3 billion internet users over the next 5 years, right? Most of that growth is going to come from emerging markets. That's really good, right? Especially if you're in a place like India, because next to China, India is the second largest, or will be the second largest emerging market in the world, and actually the third or fourth largest world economy for that matter. So 2 to 3 billion internet users, and almost all the growth in the internet is going to come from emerging markets. So not only is the World Wide Web a great place to be today, right? But emerging markets is also a great place to be. Now let me talk about a couple of the big trends that are shaping the next generation of innovation on the internet, right? The first big trend, and arguably the most powerful trend that we have on the internet today, is mobile, right? What's mobile? Well, it's basically feature phones at the low end, smartphones and tablets, right? And then other form factors that will come beyond that. What this shows is pretty interesting, guys. You know, I know all of you are analytical, you're in business school. What this basically looks at is global shipments of PCs, right? Desktop computers, notebook computers, and it compares that to global shipment of smartphones and tablets. If you look at that slide, this year, there are more smartphones and tablets shipped in the world than desktops and notebooks. It's pretty profound, right? Around, and I'm not talking about feature phones, you know, the low-cost phones that you have where you access voice, etc., right? These are smartphones. Think Android smartphones, iPhones, right? Microsoft Windows phones, Symbian high-end phones, etc. So essentially, when you look at this, and if you go down to 2013, which is only about a year and a half away, right? The mobile devices that will be shipped in the world, smartphones and tablets, will be twice the size of the traditional desktops and notebooks shipped in 2013. So trend number one, right? Mobile is the future. So the reason that you see companies like Apple valued at $350 billion, right? You see, even a company in India like InMobi, which actually is leveraging on mobile advertising, just raised $200 million at a very, very high, close to $1 billion valuation. Is they're capitalizing on this trend of incredible growth in mobile devices, but more importantly, mobile connectivity. Right? Because what this means is the smartphone and a tablet, you're generally connected to the internet. Right? First big trend. And by the way, when you think about change and excellence, I was telling Professor this just before we came in. I joined Dell in 2003. Right? I was working with Michael Dell for about a year. The year 2003, Dell was named the most admired company of America. Revenues were growing 30%, market cap 70 billion. We were at 35 billion revenue, growing at essentially on track with $60 billion. Dell in many ways was actually that first curve in the first couple of years, right? If you look at that 2008, this is 2003. 2008, there were, call it 300 million desktops and notebooks sold. There were only 150 million. If you go back to 2003, there were about 180, 190 million desktops and notebooks sold. Virtually no smartphones. Smartphones as category didn't exist. Tablets hadn't been invented, right? In 5 years, by 2008, Dell had gone from being the most admired company in the world. Market value had dropped by 50%. Wall Street had really lost interest. It wasn't the darling of Wall Street, etc. And most importantly, and quite frankly, very concerningly, we missed the entire mobile wave. Right? So along the themes of change, in our world, which is the technology world, the only constant is change. Right? So in our world, excellence equals change. You don't change very, very fast, you're never going to be excellent, right? So in our world, you can be a great company for about 2 to 3 years. And then after that, you just got to keep reinventing yourself and reinventing yourself. Second big trend on the web that we see today that's really dramatically changing everything is video, right? Online video. And I'm going to give you a couple of interesting statistics. 2 billion users on the web. 57% of them watch music videos on the web. How many of you watch music videos on the web? Oh, good. See, you're part of the 57%. About 1.2 billion, right? 48 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube, which is one video property, every minute. In fact, in the last 3 months, there's been more user-generated content uploaded onto YouTube than all of the content created by the top 4 broadcasting networks in the US since 1948. Guys, think about this. It's pretty phenomenal, right? What does this mean? What does this mean? Users want to engage, right? Users want to create. Users want to share. And it's a pretty phenomenal, pretty interesting phenomenon. And with YouTube and online video, now you can actually share video, not just a blog post or something like that. 3 billion plus views per day of for YouTube, 3 billion views a day. 2 billion users on the internet, 3 billion video views a day on one video site. YouTube is not the entire video web, right? This is one of the leading sites in the web. And by 2015, the equivalent of 2 years of video will cross the internet every second. Is that pretty amazing? Right? 2 years worth of video every second crossing the internet. Now this, we think, is pretty damn cool, right? And especially if you're thinking about going into industries, you're thinking about starting companies, we think online video is a pretty interesting place to be. The other big trend is social, right? How many of you have a Facebook account? How many of you have a Google Plus account? Oh my, not bad. Impressive. How many of you have done a Hangout? What do the rest of you do on Google Plus? By the way, you should try a Hangout. It's pretty cool. Hangout is basically multi-party video, right? That's how I talk to my mom now. I just do a Hangout. Oh, really? Yeah. You should try it with your mom. Just get on Google Plus account, just do video. It's a multi-party video. You can get your mom, you can get your dad, you can get your brothers, sisters, you do a video, right? But social has changed everything, right? I think you all know the stats for Facebook. But some of these other statistics are actually mind-blowing, right? 800 million social network users in the world. That was last year. That number is over 1 billion now because Facebook by itself has 250 million, users around the world. 1,500 blog posts a minute, in the world. 82,000 Facebook updates. 25 billion tweets in 2010. How many have a Twitter account? Social's everything, right? Social's changed everything. And if you look at the power of the social web today, we launched this product called Google Plus. It was actually 4 months ago. And we actually went out of private beta about a month ago, right? So basically Google Plus came out of private beta, which means anybody can sign up for Google Plus account. Only about a month ago. 40 million users on Google Plus. And we actually believe, if you ask me, if you ask Larry Page, who's our founder and CEO, the number one priority for Google today is Google Plus, as well as making the entire web social. So we're making all our products social. And the reason is very simple, because we believe that the next 5 or 10 years of the web will actually be driven by the social graph. The other mega trend, which has been now going on for about 12, 13 years, is e-commerce. Right? This chart actually shows you, I know those of you sitting in the back can't read any of this, but basically shows you where we are today in terms of e-commerce, as well as the growth up to 2014. Okay? Today we are basically at globally across all countries, we're at about $250 billion worth of transactions on e-commerce. Okay? $250 billion. In about 2.5 years, 3 years, by the end of 2014, the world will have $500 billion or $500 billion worth of e-commerce. These are big numbers, guys, just for those of you that understand how much commerce can get done, right? It's pretty fundamental, right? How many of you use Flipkart? Great. How many of you use another e-commerce site other than Flipkart? Good. Actually, if you're in the US today and I'm in a similar, having a similar session, everybody pretty much buys everything online, right? Except for maybe Subway sandwiches and McDonald's and so on. I guess that'll also get there eventually. So that's the other big trend, right? So these are some of the mega trends that we're seeing on the internet And what's happening, guys, with the internet, the World Wide Web, is these underlying trends, right? 2 billion users going to 3 billion users. Mobile becoming massively important. Smartphones and tablets overtaking desktops and notebooks, right? Video is on a tear, and social is the future. When you put all those things together, what we're in is we're in a period of unprecedented innovation, right? So these are probably companies that you would all recognize. Many of these companies were created less than 5 years ago, and most of them are worth several $1 billion today, right? Groupon founded what, 3 years ago? Worth several $1 billion. You can debate, is it real or not? I'm showing you in finance classes, you guys have all these debates. Guys, the internet, get on the net. Just get lots of users, we drive revenue, we try to build companies, etc. Right? Foursquare, $1 billion company. You can go through the list, right? Zynga today. Zynga is a company that was built off Facebook. How many of you are Zynga users? Right. Zynga today has a market value that's higher than Electronic Arts. Guys, Electronic Arts, a 15-year-old company, right? Most valuable gaming company in the world until Zynga came along. And Zynga basically has great games, phenomenal execution, built the company right off Facebook. Social plus gaming, biggest online gaming company in the world, now biggest gaming company. Right? So that's sort of the global picture and what's going on. Now for some of you that are actually going to build global businesses, all these trends are very relevant. But for many of you that might say, hey, what does all this mean? Because we're sitting in India. Now what I'd like to do is actually share with you some of the trends that are going on in India and what that might mean for you. So let's now move to India. About 9-10 months ago, India became the third largest internet user market in the world. Okay? India now has 100 million internet users. These are users who are accessing the internet from a desktop or a notebook computer. Doesn't include mobile, I'll talk about mobile. 100 million users, guys, is a very big number, right? 30 million of these Indians access the internet from home. 40 million access from work, another 30 million access from internet cafes. So one of the things you'll hear about is, we don't have enough broadband, we don't have enough this, we don't have enough that. All true. But the fact is 100 million Indians have found a way to get onto the net. And actually they're doing a lot on the net, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's also 50 million mobile internet users today. Most of them access the internet through a feature phone. Right? The smartphone penetration, as I'll share with you, is still not where it needs to be. Most of that 50 million are like those of us in this room, right? How many of you access the internet through your phone? By the way, those of you that aren't, just get on the net on your phone. It's much more fun, by the way. So how many of you actually access a notebook or a desktop every day? I don't. Right? Actually don't. I get 1,500 emails a day. I look at all kinds of documents, all kinds of spreadsheets. Spreadsheets I don't read as much. Right? You can actually do all of that on this today, right? So the mobile internet, and this is, I'm what one might call like a professional user of the web, right? I use a lot of documents, I read a lot of stuff, I get thousands of emails. Today, the mobile internet, right? The mobile internet, and 50 million is actually a big number. Facebook has crossed 34 million users in India. YouTube, which is online video, has 23 million users today, right? And if you want to reach a demographic in India today, which is 15 to 34 male, YouTube actually has the biggest reach compared to any other youth-focused TV channel in India. Isn't that pretty amazing? Right? 23 million users, more reach for youth in India, English-speaking youth, 15 to 34, than any TV channel in India. And the last thing is e-commerce, right? We talked about the worldwide e-commerce market being 250 billion going to 500 billion. Actually, in India, it's also happening, right? And I think tomorrow you've got a number of startups who are going to come and talk to you about this, talk about what they're doing in the internet space. E-commerce is now $7 billion. That's a lot of revenue. $7 billion of e-commerce is actually a lot of e-commerce. 6 billion of that, by the way, is travel. 40% of airline tickets now are bought online in India. About 10% of all hotel bookings are actually done online. So clearly, not only are these trends impacting the world, right? There's a massive amount of innovation and mega trends around the world. But even in India, it's not only beginning to happen, it's actually already hit a level of critical scale. And as I'll share with you in a minute, it's beginning to accelerate. I'm going to take each, one or two of these trends and give you a little more data, right? Because so you get a sense of what's really going on. So let's start with e-commerce, right? A lot of the new generation of startups that you're seeing in India are really e-commerce companies, right? Started off with Make My Trip going public last year. Now you've seen a whole, maybe 20, 30 companies actually get funded at reasonably high levels. E-commerce will go from 7 billion to 14 billion, okay, over the next 4 or 5 years. So today, by the way, if you're thinking about starting a company, right? I mean, you should look at the internet, mobile, social, cloud spaces because, if you just take one small sliver like e-commerce, right? It's 40 billion. Just to give you a sense, by the way, Indian retail is $450 billion, right? I don't know how many of you read the Economic Times this morning. All of organized retail, which means, Tata, Croma, Reliance, Vijay Sales, all the Biani Group brands, you put all that stuff together, it's $45 billion today. All of organized retail in India is $45 billion today. Now that number will accelerate given the new FDI regulations that were passed. Right? So that number will probably go to 90, maybe 100, whatever. But guys, this is a big number. What we're saying is the e-commerce industry will be as large as all of organized retail today in 4 years. Right? So e-commerce, very big deal. The other thing is if you look at the 7 billion today, as I said, 1 billion is non-travel e-commerce. You look at 7 billion, 6 billion is travel, 1 billion is non-travel, right? If you break down the non-travel, and those of you in the background, sorry about that, 67%, almost 700 million is consumer electronics. $500 million worth of phones will be bought online in India this year. It's pretty staggering, right? If you think about it. I mean, obviously that's a small percentage of the entire phone industry, because Nokia by itself is about $7 billion already, right? So whether it's phones, whether it's books, whether it's accessories, increasingly whether it's garments, and you have sports goods and so on and so forth. So e-commerce is actually a very big trend, and we would argue it will be one of the shaping trends of the Indian internet for the next couple of years. The next thing I want to talk about is really mobile, right? You see two things here, right? This is basically, as Google, one of the things we look at is how many search queries are users doing, right? So what this looks at is, for the last 18 months or so, what's going on with search queries. And search queries coming from desktops and notebooks, and search queries coming from mobile, okay? So the blue line is search queries coming from desktops and notebooks. Guess what the green line is? Search queries coming from mobile. It is unbelievable. The number of search queries that Indians are doing from their mobile phone is unbelievable, right? So if you look at it today, 40% of all search queries on Google are actually from mobile phones. And what's interesting is, those of you that can read those percentages, look at the percentages of mobile queries in the other markets compared to India. India is at 40%, Brazil is only at 6%, US is at 14%, UK is at 16%, Russia is at 11%. The adoption of mobile has already been much faster in India. Interestingly, it's led off feature phones and it's led off 2.5G networks, right? And as many of you know, all this is before the advent really of 3G. There's only about 15 million 3G users today, right? This is mostly on GPRS. So this really shows what's happening in India in terms of mobile data and also the potential that we have to dramatically accelerate this once we get the next 200-300 million users online. So as I said, smartphones, which is what most of the world is. If you look at the US, UK, Japan, most of those markets have actually moved to smartphones. That's why Apple's worth, $350 billion and so on and so forth. In India, actually, last year we had about 11 million active smartphone users. This year we'll have about 20 million. But what's interesting is, over the next 4 years, that number will easily cross 100 million smartphone users, right? And by the way, there are two big drivers of this. One is the cost of smartphone devices coming down. Today you can actually get a pretty high quality smartphone for about 8,000 rupees, Android device. We will have an Android device in the market probably within 15, 18 months that will be sub 4,000 rupees, right? Looks super cool, capacitive screen, latest operating system, sub 4,000 rupees. In fact, I think this 100 million number by 2015 could actually be more like 200 rupees. So that's one big driver, which is the cost of smartphones coming down. The other big driver is data plans. You know, when 3G was launched, I don't know how many of you bought a 3G plan when it was launched, right? There was almost a 10x. The cost of 2.5G cost of 3G was 10x. 100 rupees, 1000 rupees, 200 rupees, 2000 rupees. If you look at it plan for plan, right? That pricing difference now is only 2x. By 2.5G, 3G, that pricing difference is only 3G. So combination of handset prices coming down rapidly as well as much more affordable data plans will actually make smartphones explode. Now that, in addition to that, we've got kind of interesting things that users can do. So that's the second big thing that happening in India. You know, the third interesting one, especially for those of you that want to look for new things to do, right? I don't know how many of you actually want to go out and try to build new companies. We believe that one of the biggest areas of opportunity on the internet in India is local language, right? 100 million users on the internet, almost all of them are very English-centric. The internet in India today is an English web. You know, the web in China, by the way, is a Chinese web. It's Chinese language web. It's a very English web in China. Whereas India is very different. 100 million users, it's an English web. We believe that this English web maybe can scale to 200 million, but maybe only about 150 million, right? But as we know, we have 1.2 billion Indians. And we are reasonably confident, given what's happening with the cost of smartphones, as well as data plans, we will have 300-400 million internet users over the next 3-4 years. But for them to actually have anything to do other than watch videos and listen to music online, there has to be content, right? And if you look at it as a proxy, there are about 400 million Indians that read a newspaper, right? 400 million Indians. That's sort of what the industry estimates. 40% of them, actually, 160 million of them, actually read a Hindi newspaper. And then you can kind of go through all the other languages, Marathi, Tamil, Telugu, etc., right? English, 30 million people read English newspaper. Isn't that interesting? Only 30 million people in India read an English newspaper. So the opportunity to actually go out and create very interesting local content-driven businesses is phenomenal, right? So we are doing, as Google, we're doing a whole bunch of things to dramatically expand the internet. And I would say probably the second most important, first most important thing is we're trying to bring the cost of devices down, right? This whole notion of sub 4,000 rupee handset or with a smartphone. The second big thing that we're focusing on is how do we get a lot more content, massive terabytes, right, of content, interesting content that's not English, local language content on the web. So massive opportunity in vernacular, and we think this is going to be actually one of the big next big waves. You know, the other interesting thing that's happening in India is most of everything that we've talked up to this point is around consumer-focused technology, right? It's about B2C type technology, B2C type products. The other interesting thing that's happening in India is India, we believe, over the next 4 or 5 years, will become a cloud-first IT market, right? How many of you are familiar with cloud? How many of you know what cloud is? It's not bad. By the way, I don't mean clouds. We're all going to say cloud. So we believe that India will be a cloud-first IT market. And the reason for that, guys, is very simple. Other than a couple of thousand large enterprises, and maybe 100,000 businesses, maybe 200,000 businesses, most businesses in India, there are 8 million businesses with over 5 employees, do not have compute infrastructure, right? There are only 1.8 million businesses in India that have a PC, but there are 8 million businesses with over 5 million, over 5 people, right? That's 6.5 million SMBs that actually don't even have a PC. What the cloud provides is almost a 90% reduction in the cost of owning computing infrastructure for a business, right? Because all of a sudden, you don't need to own any software. You don't need to buy a server. You don't need to have storage. You don't need to have middleware, right? All you need is an access device. Everything else on the cloud. Interesting fact, Google today in India has 200,000 SMBs that are using Google apps. Gmail, Google Docs, a bunch of other stuff that we have in the cloud, right? 200,000 businesses. And this is, we haven't even tried it, right? We have aggressively gone on and tried to get several 100,000. So this notion that, and by the way, these are revenue numbers for the cloud computing market, right? Current estimate is that this year, all of cloud computing technologies, software as a service, platform as a service, infra as a service, will be about $400 billion. That number will get to over 4 billion over the next 3 or 4 years. A 10x, 11x growth over 4 years in cloud computing. So if you happen to be from, how many of you come from IT services type companies? Right? Guys, this is the slum. Whatever you do, Don't go back to an IT services company. I love them all. They're all fantastic. Go build cloud infrastructure, products, right? Because this is amazing. By the way, you can also go back to your companies, build products for this. Because look at this. What does this mean? This means you can easily build 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion product company out of here, right? Because you have a cloud IT market that's going to go from 400 billion to 4.5 billion. So clearly, the whole area of cloud, in addition to the incredible opportunities around mobile, around social, around video, around e-commerce in India, we also have a massive B2B opportunity which is centered around the cloud opportunity. So now what does all this mean, right? Obviously what all this means is companies like Google, companies like Facebook, companies like Zynga, etc. are going to do very well in India, right? Our business is just boom. It's just boom. But what it also means is we are going to have a massive number of superbly interesting startups that are going to come up in India. And it's happening already, right? And the media especially loves to write about how there's too much funding that's going into e-commerce and how, oh my God, 10 companies got funded. The simple way I think about this is if you look at the macro trends, right, and all the things that we've just talked about. We're in the first over of the 5-day test match, right? First over bowl. You got all the rest of the overs in the first day, and then you got 4 more days to play, right? Just in the first over, if you think about it that way, right? It's not the first day, first over. Think about the incredibly interesting companies that that have been created already in India, right? Whether it's Naukri, which I'm told that Sanjeev is an IIMA alumni, just make my trip. Another IIMA can try to go to the first. Both of them said, make sure we're from campus. That's great. Companies like Flipkart, Webspy, Yatra, and then you have there's a lot of e-commerce companies, a lot of classifieds companies, and then what we're now beginning to see is actually a number of companies in cloud computing, like Dhruva. Dhruva is endpoint storage in the cloud, right? Companies valued, 200-300 crores already. Companies been around for 2 years. Capillary, ex-IIT, guys from IIT Kharagpur. Low venture funding already valued at some crazy number because they've got, $4-5 million of the revenue, and so on and so forth, right? So you've got basically all these mega trends. What they're really creating is an opportunity to create a large number of interesting companies. But so far, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg. So the last thing I want to end with is, as you think about what all this means for all of you, right? And what all this means for, I think, India in general, and technology entrepreneurs, and folks who work in technology companies, as well as folks who are outside of technology companies, is that there are a large number of spaces where massively interesting businesses can be built, where massively interesting startups can be built, and for somewhat more established companies like Google or Facebook or others, that huge amounts of value that they can create, right? And those really range from SaaS, software as a service, to web-enabled services. Imagine all the consumer and SME services that you can deliver on the web, right? Today, if you want to find a lawyer, how easy is it? It's actually not that easy. It's not that easy, unless your dad happens to be a lawyer, or you've got somebody social graph that happens to be a lawyer, right? If you actually want to get a will written, I don't know how much that costs. It costs a lot of money. Because if I'm a lawyer, you've got to pay the guy 25,000 rupees, right? That's a web-enabled service. Now we just have a service that just says consumers can come to a site and we'll provide them some great information. Maybe we'll connect them. So you can think about hundreds of opportunities around web-enabled services, right? Mobile, I think we've talked about. Mobile has literally hundreds and thousands of opportunities. Take a simple problem, right? Video on 2.5G. I just told you. Of the 50 million mobile internet users, 95% of them are using a feature phone and writing GPRS networks. How do you do video? On mobile. Because mobile in India so far is GPRS. So with those computer scientists in the room who come from telecom, I don't know how many of you actually got a degree in telecom infrastructure, that's a super cool problem to solve, right? Local, untapped. Do a search for me today after you're done with this. Those of you that live here or when you get back home, just do a search on your mobile phone for cricket bat. Buy a cricket bat. Only listing you will get is India Mart. India Mart is an exporter. So the other day I was looking for a pair of soccer shoes. Maya, my daughter, is 5. Got into the soccer league. Very excited to get soccer shoes, right? So I'm like, how hard can it be? I live in Chanakpur in Delhi. Soccer shoes in Delhi. I got 5 exporters. Well, what does that mean by that? It means that actually local businesses finding local information is hard. That's a massive opportunity. The massive opportunity for companies like us. The massive opportunity for many other companies, right? Social, I think we've talked about. I think building another social network, I know there are a couple of companies in India that are trying to build a social network, that may not be very interesting, right? Because now there are a bunch of great social networks. But what's really interesting is if you can take the social graph and build companies around how to leverage the social graph. Because in many ways, what companies like Zynga and all other companies are doing is leveraging the social graph to actually build hugely interesting businesses, right? Content, I talked about content, massive untapped opportunity in content. E-commerce, I think, is still very, very low. I wouldn't build a company today trying to consume electronics or books. Those categories, I think, have several very well-funded companies, but man, outside of that, there are hundreds of categories, right, where you can actually build very interesting businesses. And then finally, enabling infrastructure, right? A lot of, for all of this to happen, for e-commerce to go from 5 billion to 40 billion, for mobile internet users to go from 50 million to 300 million. A lot of enabling infrastructure, and I don't mean infrastructure as in roads and ports, right? I mean technology infrastructure needs to be built. So all of that essentially creates an unparalleled set of opportunities for anybody and everybody in India. And I think it's most relevant for companies like us, right? Us and our peer group, but also for many of you, because I think if you're thinking about what you're going to do for the next 20, 30 years of your life, this, I'm hoping, is something cool to be doing, because it is going to keep you massively engaged for the next 40 years, because the only thing that stays the same in our industry is change. That's pretty much what I have. Let me now pause and take questions.